Well, as I've said to you many times before, that I think that you are America's premier explainer. Something complicated going on in the day, you come out and you, as I've said before, you lay the story out like parts on a lawn and then you put it together and say, hey, this is how the engine works. Are you at all frustrated that the present scandal is so damn simple? Let me lay out the parts. Trump called Ukraine, and I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't even sleuth your way through it, too, because in order to find out that Trump called Ukraine, what we had to do was ask Trump, did you call Ukraine? And he said, yes, here's the evidence. So there wasn't even like a whodunit, how can we prove it? It's over. I mean, there is stuff to explain, like, why did this happen in Ukraine? And why did he think that he could get that? And what's going to happen to Ukraine? I mean, there's other contextual stuff I can make long segments about.
Right.
But in terms of who done it, he did it, and he admits it, and now he's going to be impeached for it.
That's interesting.
So I'm going to be on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert later tonight. It went great. Stephen Colbert is very, very good at his job. It was very kind of him to have me on tonight. I was super happy to do that. You should watch that. I'm also going to be on The Today Show on NBC tomorrow morning. And then I am also going to be on The View on Thursday. Pray for me. I'm doing all of these interviews in other places on other people's shows, which is not a thing I typically do. But the reason I'm doing them all is because this book that I wrote has just come out today. I have spent more than the last year writing it. It is finally out. And I promise to you, as a viewer of the show, that I will not spend every waking minute on TV talking about it. I mean, you can get the book if you want. It's okay if you don't. I promise I will not harangue you about it. But today, on the occasion of the book coming out, that conversation with Mr. Colbert tonight made me realize that there is actually one thing that is in the book that I feel like I should put on TV just as news, because I think it explains some of what's going on with the Trump impeachment right now. And it's something that is probably worth knowing in the news as it is developing right now. So this is it. As I talked about with Stephen Colbert tonight, it is just unavoidable that the thing for which Trump is going to be impeached is a sort of open and shut case. He called Ukraine. He asked them to provide him some help with this Joe Biden problem he thinks he might have for 2020 for his reelection. He admits doing it. The White House has provided us the proof that he did it. It's kind of open and shut. I mean, you can't solicit help from a foreign government for your reelection campaign. That's what he did. So the core thing here is very simple. He did it. He admits it. We have the proof. He is going to be impeached for it. And to a certain extent, maybe that is all any of us ultimately will need to know. But if you have wondered at all why it is that Trump thought he could get something from Ukraine to use against Joe Biden in the 2020 election, it turns out there is a funny story there that might get more important as this goes on. So the president's lawyer, I guess, Rudy Giuliani, goes on TV now and he says, look, I've got this document. I've got the evidence against Joe Biden. What Trump was asking Ukraine for to help in his reelection, I've got it now. I've got the dirt on Joe Biden from Ukraine. Well, this is the document that Giuliani has been waving around. It is a statement, and as it says on the first page, it is a statement, quote, made at the request of lawyers acting for Dmitry Firtash for use in legal proceedings in Austria. This is the document. This is the stuff. This is the allegations that they want to use against Joe Biden. They've got it. You know, it's a statement that says Joe Biden definitely did terrible things that have all been disproven, but nevertheless, they should be definitely mainlined right onto the Fox News channel, and other news organizations should spend a bunch of time looking into them with front page stories, and the president should definitely base his re-election campaign around these disproven allegations, the same way he based his election campaign in 2016 around the documents and materials stolen on his behalf by Russian intelligence and posted online by WikiLeaks. So that's how they are running this, right? It's not just that the president solicited help for his 2020 campaign from Ukraine. His personal lawyer now says, hey, I've got it. I've got what we were asking for. And this is what we're going to run our campaign around. Factually, as I say, these claims against Joe Biden have not just been debunked. They have been revealed as outright lies. They're constructed lies that have been created for the purposes of trying to give Trump something to use against Biden and the Democrats to get reelected next year. But why is it that the form they're coming in is this statement that has been provided to this guy, Dmitry Firtash? Why is this manufactured smear against Joe Biden, which is now going to lead to the president's impeachment, why has it been provided to President Trump and Rudy Giuliani by, quote, lawyers acting for Dmitry Firtash? So here's the part that I think is helpful in the book, because it's about that guy. All right? It's from page 231, chapter 19. Quote, Putin's team in the Kremlin was delighted to utilize a man with Dmitry Firtash's special skills and talents to shape Ukraine to its liking, to turn it from its increasingly worrying flirtation with the West, with the European Union, with, oh God, maybe even NATO. They cut Dmitry Firtash a sweetheart deal in Ukraine. Firtash was given the exclusive right to buy gas from Russia to sell to Ukraine at a very large profit, about $800 million a year, clear profit in 2007 alone. Firtash's company wasn't making anything. It wasn't even necessarily moving anything. It wasn't really doing anything at all except getting paid. Ukraine could just as easily have bought the gas with no middleman and no markup. But Putin wanted both the middleman and the markup, because Dmitry would turn out to be handy. And so would the assurance of fantastical corruption at the very heart of the Ukrainian state. And so would the prospect of all the richest and most powerful and influential people in Ukraine being dependent on Russia's every whim. It cost the Russian gas company Gazprom a pretty penny, straight out of Russian government coffers, but it was worth it. Firtash would have plenty of cash to spread around to shape Ukraine in ways that Putin would appreciate. Some of that cash did go back to Moscow as tribute, but even more of it went to prop up a pro-Kremlin political party, the Party of Regions, which meant that a whole bunch of that money ended up in the bank accounts of the mercenary American political operative, Paul Manafort. And then the next few pages, 232, 234, 233, 234, are about how, not that long ago, before he was in prison, before he was running President Donald Trump's campaign, Paul Manafort cooked up a scheme in Ukraine where a politician came in and said, hey, this gas deal where this guy's being paid all this money to sell gas between Russia and Ukraine, this is a corrupt deal. That guy doesn't need to be there. Why are we paying this middleman $800 million a year in pure profit when we could instead just buy the gas directly without him in there taking all that money? There was a politician who came into office promising to get rid of that deal. In response, Manafort engineered an elaborate effort in Ukraine to smear that politician for that. It's the woman there in the white coat. They literally got her locked up in Ukraine for her efforts to try to undo that corrupt deal, which the Kremlin had set up for this guy, Dmitry Firtash. She ran for office saying she'd clean up that corruption. She went right at that deal. She undid that deal. And then they prosecuted her for some vague allegation that she had something to do with the famously corrupt business of importing natural gas into Ukraine from Russia. Yeah, that is fantastically corrupt. And she did have something to do with it. She tried to clean it up. And so they prosecuted her and said she was the corrupt one. And that's how corruption can be really useful. Corruption isn't always a cancer. Corruption isn't always a stain. Corruption is something sometimes they make happen on purpose. It can be really useful to unscrupulous and predatory political figures, right? That's why you might want to create it on purpose, and why Russia, in fact, has gone out of their way to do so in Ukraine, which has led to this situation in which our president is now going to be impeached for his dealings with Ukraine. I mean, the basic idea is that if you've created a tar pit of corruption somewhere, one of the things that gives you is not only the ability to control the people who are in that tarry mess, it's the ability to make new allegations of corruption against anyone who even brushes by that mess that they've deliberately created, right? You can weaponize that against anyone. So I think this is helpful to see that before they ever tried to throw corruption charges at Joe Biden for the great crime of him standing up on behalf of the U.S. government against corruption in Ukraine, before they ever tried running this playbook that they're trying to run right now against Joe Biden in Ukraine, They ran it the exact same way in the exact same country against another politician who posed a threat to a pro-Putin politician who had been advised by Paul Manafort. It's the exact same play. And then, as now, they used the Kremlin's guy in Ukraine, Dmitry Firtash. They used him to run the play the first time against that Ukrainian politician who they locked up. And they are using that same guy, Dmitry Firtash, again, to try to sell this same playbook, this time against Joe Biden. When we found out a couple of weeks ago that Dmitry Firtash had signed up two lawyers who are potted plants, fixtures on the Fox News channel, who have Trump's ear but otherwise don't provide much of a legal service to anyone, it was weird, right? Why is Dmitry Firtash signing up those two Trumpy lawyers? Oh, it's because they're going to try to Timoshenko Joe Biden. They're going to do that exact same thing they did to that politician in Ukraine, except this time they're going to do it to Joe Biden. They're running the exact same plot using the exact same people. Honestly, it's uncanny. It is a total rerun. I mean, the second time they're running it now is now. The first time they ran it is in the book that I nearly killed myself writing over this past year, which finally came out today. And I will not bug you about it any more than this. But as of today, it is finally out there. You can see for yourself. If you want to just skip to this part, the dry run for what they're doing to Joe Biden right now, you can start at chapter 19. All right. Lots more to come tonight. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.